Kamala Harris has just signed on to one of Joe Biden's big tax proposal policies, and it's related to basically wealth taxes. So the Department of the Treasury released this big report, and it's trying to get a 25% minimum tax on income for everybody making over a specific amount of money. Okay.
On income period?
On income period.
Okay.
And so this tax is they want to change the capital gains tax so that it affects unrealized gains for people who make over $100 million or have over $100 million in assets. Okay. So if you have over $100 million in assets, the Treasury Department is proposing that they tax the unrealized capital gains of your investments. That goes into holdings that you have for a company or assets in the stock market or assets in your paintings, whatever it is, assets you own. If they accumulate, you have to pay taxes on it. How do you feel about this initially? What's your initial thought?
I love it. I mean, wealth tax on people with over 100 million in assets.
Yeah.
I mean, once you're over, I mean, you can possibly, I've heard the argument made for $50 million is the number you need to not worry about anything anymore and live a life where you live in a really nice like penthouse in New York City.
Sure.
You can take vacations all the time. By the time you get 100 million, like you are seeing no incremental value to your life.
No, bro, you won. You won, bro. You have $100 million. You're win.
You're chilling.
People are worried about some of the economic effects, but some think tanks are proposing that it's actually better for market efficiency to have.
What economic effects are people worried about?
So one of them is that it's not going to encourage investment. So right now capital gains taxes aren't applied until you sell the thing. Okay. So if you hold your money in some asset, it's accumulating value over time. That money is still in that, and you're not pulling it out because you don't want to get taxed on the money.
Sure.
And their thought process is, well, we don't want people pulling out their money frequently.
Yeah.
And that's why we discourage that. Well, or that's why the capital gains tax discourages that, and then that's why that's a good thing. Other think tanks say, actually, it's a bad thing for market efficiency. Quoting, an incentive for taxpayers to ineffectively lock in portfolios of assets and hold them primarily for the purpose of avoiding capital gains taxes on the appreciation rather than investing the capital in more economically productive investments.
Yeah.
So somebody could be worried about getting their money taxed through the capital gains rate, leave their money in an inefficient or not good investment for the purpose of just not having the money taxed, and then not reallocating it to a more productive area.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
My other immediate question, this is only for individuals or families, right? They're not talking about institutions.
No, not institutions.
Okay.
It's just individuals.
I would worry about it if it affected institutions.
I would agree.
Yeah.
I would agree. It's actually one of the things that I disagree with Kamala Harris's economic policy is increasing the corporate tax rate.
Really?
I don't actually agree with increasing the corporate tax rate. I think because I think the problem isn't, I don't think, getting tax money from corporations. It's making sure corporations use their money effectively in ways that benefit the public. And so, like, if a corporation is going to reinvest their profits into expanding their business or not letting them buy back their own stock or not paying off huge amounts of money to their executives and giving their bonuses to executives, and if we tax the hell out of them personally but don't tax the business and let the business grow, that's what I would prefer.
I guess I see what you're saying, but I think first of all, the 28% corporate tax rate, which is what she's floating, what she's supporting, is not a historically high tax rate.
No, it's not.
Still a quite low corporate tax rate. And I think those dollars being in the hands of the government to do things like pay down our debt better, to spend on military in a very uncertain time,
Sure.
to support Social Security and Medicare, and many like subsidized housing, construction. I would probably be on board for that.
No, I get that. I get that. Like if I had to pick one or the other, like in our current economic system right now, I would rather have the 28% than the 21%.
Yes.
Because there isn't the political will to raise taxes so much more on the wealthy personally,
Sure.
or go after the way that corporations are allowed to spend their money.
Exactly.
Right? And since we can't do that, then I'll be okay with the higher corporate tax.
Sure. Okay.
Back on this unrealized thing. So it's on this unrealized capital gains tax is only applying to people with $100 million, not institutions. Okay. And one of the reasons that this is so important is because even though the wealthy might not sell off their assets, they can still use their assets in order to purchase things. A great example is when these rich people borrow money against their assets in order to finance their lifestyles. And so this person is able to totally utilize all of their assets to buy whatever they want, never get taxed on it, and then still be able to enjoy all the fruits of it. And that's a huge problem. That doesn't happen for us. We work and you work, and we have to pay taxes on every dollar that we earned and every dollar that we eventually get to spend.
Yeah.
They don't.
But and you might think, well, they have to pay interest on those loans, right? So isn't it equivalent to being taxed? But the difference is the rates, because with enormous piles of assets like this, you can get loans for like 5% could be on the high end of the interest you get on your loan, whereas we're looking at paying between 20 and 30% of our money in taxes.
Yep,
It's not even the same like tier.
That was perfect explanation there, because that was another question. Don't they have to pay interest? Your interest is nothing when you're taking out so much sums of money. And this is a big problem because billionaires are currently paying 8.2% in taxes in any given year. That's bullshit, right? There's no reason that a billionaire should be paying a lower tax rate than you or me or a firefighter or a teacher. There's no reason for it. There's no reason. And so I think that this is the right approach. It's also good for tackling like the intergenerational wealth problem, because currently when you hand off your assets to another person, because the estate tax is in a whole mess of a situation right now, it's not really applicable. So when you hand off your assets to another person, it's something called a step-up basis. And so if you never realized your money, you never sold off your capital before you died, it goes to your heir, and that heir, if they were to sell off the assets, doesn't have to pay the capital gains from you when you originally invested.
Wow.
So that's a huge problem.
That's a huge loophole.
Wow. It's called the step up loophole. And so that situation has led to, a bunch of, trust fund kids never having to pay any money or any taxes on any of the stuff that they inherit.
Yeah.
And this would change that, because you're getting taxed every year on the unrealized gains.
Yeah. The only thing I want to emphasize here is like the $100 million threshold, which is so important, because I would have a real problem if my like $30,000 in my Roth IRA or whatever was getting taxed with the gains.
I would not accept that.
Right? It would be terrible.
No.
So this is not a policy that's meant to prevent people, like middle-class people, from living a normal life and getting to retirement and stuff like that. This is just for the ultra wealthy.
Ultra wealthy. Now, let's talk about the courts, because you know us, we love talking about the courts. The courts are working their way to make wealth taxes unconstitutional right now. So there's a case going through the system right now called Moore. And then this case, I'm not going to go through all the specifics. It's not important. But it's specifically around the 16th Amendment. The 16th Amendment says, and I quote, "Congress shall have power to lay and collect taxes on incomes from whatever source derived without without among the several states and without regard to any census or enumeration." So basically this says Congress has the right to levy taxes on incomes. What's the definition of incomes? Because now there's a plaintiff in front of the Supreme Court that is saying that wealth and money derived from wealth does not equal incomes. And so they say that income specifically only refers to realized income. And this is going to be a big problem. Now, there's some court cases from 100 years ago that talk about this. And in Bowers v. Kerbenow in 1926, that says income may be defined as gains derived from capital, from labor, or from both combined, including profit gained from sale or conversion of capital. So that seems like income is broad enough to deal with unrealized.
I agree. Well, specifically gains from capital, and the fact that it specifically differentiates that from profit gained from selling capital.
Yeah.
That seems like it would include the way we think about capital gains.
I agree. But now it's up to the Supreme Court to determine whether or not wealth taxes are even legal.
Well, it's weird because I thought the Constitution just gave Congress a broad authority to levy taxes. So it's weird to me that an amendment would be needed to try to refine or edit that scope.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
I
wonder what
agree.
the history was there.
I wonder what the history was there too. I know the income tax needed because you know what? I don't know enough to say.
Me neither.
I don't know enough to say.
That's
But
okay.
point is, wealth tax might be made illegal before we even pass one. So
Oof.
I
We'll
know.
see. So we have a Patreon. And since you made it to the end of the episode, that means that maybe you are somewhat interested in the content we make, which, let me say, that's awesome.
That's so cool that you think that we have good takes enough for you to watch our stuff. That means a lot.
Thank you so much. You're probably wrong, but we'll take it. If you want to support the show, and we post exclusive content on there, so if you want to see more of that, see us go deeper onto a few other topics, maybe some of the stuff we post on there is stuff that we think the normies on YouTube might be a little bit less interested in, but the nerds that want to go to Patreon are more interested in, feel free to check it out. There's going to be a link in the video description. There's a link in the channel description as well.
Perfect.
We would super appreciate it.
Love you guys.